little bit yeah, thank you. I know it's not sinus, it's what's that other word? Allergies going on, so just ask you to try to hear me good the first time. So when we met, we talked about Sarah and Hagar and Tamar, and now we're going to be jumping into Exodus and talking about the Exodus Azars. Does anybody remember what Azar means? We went over it in one of the lessons. Might have been the first one, I don't remember really. An Azar is a suitable helper with a divine purpose. So we're going to be talking about these Exodus Azars. And we'll be talking about actually 10 different women. So got a lot to cover, but the last 5 was just sisters, so that's one story. So, but I want to start in Exodus chapter 1, verse 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed. Waxed means they grew in numbers. I always wondered what that really meant because, I thought waxed in our day, So they grew in number, were exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. So we know that God blessed them, just like he told Abraham and Sarah that he was going to do. They multiplied, and there was vast numbers of them. Now, as time went on, we had new pharaohs, and these pharaohs did not know Joseph or the Israelites, anything about their history or anything as far as, their experiencing, I guess I would say. Maybe experiencing their God. So the Pharaoh, of course, was afraid because there was such a great number. And so he came up with this big plan and idea to enslave the Israelites, to keep them within reach and without being a threat. I can't recall, but I know I've heard that number that, there's something about the more numbers and the basic way to keep them under control is to scare them or enslave them or, and I don't know, it might have something to do with ants and spiders somewhere. But anyway, so he thought, I'm going to enslave them, we're going to make them work hard, and in doing so, we will discourage them from multiplying, if you will, because they'll be too tired. They won't want to do anything. So he threatens, but we know God has a plan too. And no Pharaoh of any time is going to stop God's plan. No king, nobody's going to stop God's plan. So, during this pivotal time, God chose 10 women, often at the risk of their own lives, to intercede and intercede for him and step in the roles that were pivotal at pivotal times. And these women delivered our deliverer, or the deliverer of Israel, Moses. Everybody with me? Okay. So the quote starts out this week, and I really like it, and the more I read it, the more I understand it, the more it grows on me, the more I like it, is well-behaved women seldom make history. This was a quote by Laura Thatcher Ulrich. She was a professor back in her day. Probably, I don't know when it was. in saying, making this statement, she is saying that the women, or those who challenged the norm or normal for that day, tended to be remembered. And in our day, we tend to be remembered. Not that we were misbehaving. You know, I think when we hear well behaved, because that was my first thought, I was like, well, they were misbehaving. But she's not really meaning it in that sense. But that they were willing to step out of what was the normal thing to do according to society and not according to God and His purpose for it. So let's think about that, and God used these women in this time, in pivotal time, to save Moses. Okay, everybody still with me? Exodus chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. Does somebody want to read that? Somebody care to read that?
And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was
Shipra.
And the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. More?
No, that's okay. So, for right now. So Pharaoh told these two midwives to kill all the sons. My first thought was, well, he's killing the wrong ones. Women would be the one he's after. We're the one that gets things done, so to speak. but he, Pharaoh told him to kill all the sons. In verse 17 through 19, somebody will pick that up.
But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men, children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, Why have you done this thing, and have saved the men, children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them.
So, what did the midwives tell them?
They're lively. I like that part, they are lively.
They're lively. I like that too. They did not do as Pharaoh told them to. No, if you think this is the first time recorded in the Bible that somebody is going against the, what do we call it? The government or the ruler. You know, we call it government today. President, whatever. So they went against the ruler, the king, in doing this. I mean, that took some gumption, did it not? To do that. I mean, these two women stood up to the king. Well, maybe I didn't say that just right, but defied, is that a better word? Defied the king and saved these children, these sons, these boys. And in doing so, they saved more than one, I would think. It wasn't just Moses, but I kind of had that thought, we're all the time talking about Moses. Of course, he's a great man and everything, but I wonder how many more sons might have been saved because of these midwives and because of their obedience. Again, they did this as the chance of their own lives. And they chose to obey God instead. Any questions? Any comments, thoughts about these two women?
Think about, once again, a woman taking control and saving the day.
Azar. Being Azars. the Exodus Azores. I just had a thought and it left just as soon as it come. And maybe it'll come back later. I don't know. But Azores, I'm sorry, I pronounced it. They're being Azores. They're doing what God told them to do. But yeah, that's pretty astonishing that they took, did that. I mean, would we do that? I don't know. Yes, Anyway.
Depends on what you're offering.
Huh?
Depends on what you're offering.
Well, but God, you wanna know what they got, what's that word? Notice, they're in the book, they're in the Bible, that's what they got. It's doing God's work. So, I think it's pretty remarkable when you stop and think about it. They did it. They didn't question it, but I wonder how many other midwives there might have been too, I don't know.
Surely there have to be one too.
Well, you would think so. I don't know.
Because not only did they help, sounds like they helped the Israelites, they were helping the Egyptians deliver babies too.
Yeah. So you would think that would have been.
But probably,
Well, I always think so too, especially when they talk about the numbers.
maybe they were the supervisors,
The supervisor.
The head nurse.
the head nurses.
So it's pretty remarkable. If you ask me, that they stood up and took this in this moment and defied what the Pharaoh said, told them to do.
When I was reading part of it, it came to me that they were God-fearing maybe midwives,
Yes.
and they knew about God, and they had connections with God, and that he had more power over them than Pharaoh.
Yes.
That's what
Yeah, the fear. Yeah.
That's what I got.
What?
If they feared God more than they feared Pharaoh.
Yeah. What does it mean? I wrote this down somewhere if I can remember why I wrote it down. What does it mean to fear God?
I think it means to reverence God, to
Okay.
respect him, and try to be obedient, which I'm not always, because we sin daily, and that's how I perceive,
Reverence. Yeah, and I guess this is something I need to study a little bit more, but I don't even know how to say this right, but fear seems like such a scary word to me. And last thing I wanted, I don't know if this is coming out right, but I don't want to fear God and just be scared of him and do things just because I'm scared of him. So I think that's where the reverence comes in. To fear God isn't just to be afraid of him.
I think to fear him also means to respect him.
Yes, reverence, respect, obey.
The old saying of a healthy dose of fear gives you a lot of respect.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like raising my kids. I didn't want them to be scared of me, but I wanted them to know I'm the boss. And so I think the same way as parents, I've heard that a lot. You don't want your children to obey you just because they're scared of you. You want them to obey you because they respect you. So I think it's the same thing with God, but they did. They reverenced him. Any other comments?
I always felt like God fearing for me was when you know, I've always been told when you know about God, you've been taught about the Bible and how you're supposed to live, and when you choose to live otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
it's worse on people that know about God than the people that have not heard the word. So to me, God fearing is acknowledging what can, I mean, there is the wrath of God, he's not always
hear what you're saying now.
Correction.
Yes. Huh?
I fear the correction from God.
Right,
Okay, yeah.
that's
okay.
their word.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, maybe, and maybe that's a better.
Nobody wants to be whooped by God because that's very
Yeah.
humbling.
Okay, so,
Sorry.
it's okay, no, it's okay, it's good to get thoughts. Any other comments? Thoughts, questions on these two? Midwives, Shipra and Pua? Pretty brave women. So now, I want to talk a little bit about Jochebed and Pharaoh's daughter. Of course, Jochebed was Moses' biological mother, and Pharaoh's daughter was his adoptive mother. So enters two more extraordinary women that God is using for his chosen deliverer. And it's not just for Moses, but it's for the line, the lineage of Christ too, the lineage of Jesus. So here comes two more women God is using. And I mean, Pharaoh's daughter, God uses Pharaoh's daughter, and it was Pharaoh who made this rule, if you will, or law. So they also stood up at the risk of their lives to save Moses. We know their story. This is in Exodus 2, and I'll just do a quick overview, because I think we all know the story. I'll just do a quick overview for the sake of doing that. Jochebed conceives and gives birth to Moses, and she keeps him hidden for 3 months, and then she sends him down the river, makes an ark, a little miniature ark, if you will. We know, sends him down the river. Miriam follows his sister, his older sister, to see where he goes, and she tells Pharaoh's daughter where to find nourishment for Moses. And I mean, I think this is pretty amazing how God used Miriam here to, she had to be young, just a child herself. But she tells her where she can find, and Pharaoh's daughter, she knew, if you read in verses 5 and 6, and the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." She knew where this baby belonged, where he was, and where he come from. She knew that, but she still took him. Still had compassion on him. She had to know. I would think she had to know that Pharaoh had made the rule to kill all the sons, but she defies Pharaoh and has compassion on this baby. And she is mentioned later on in Acts 7, 21 and 22, Stephen's account of Moses, and he talks about Pharaoh's daughter in Acts, and how she went, and I'll read it real quick. I'll find it. Acts 7:21. And when he was cast out, talking about Moses, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and in deeds. She knew that Moses was a Hebrew, and she still had compassion, and she still took him on, if you will. And I just, how hard is it to defy, if you will, your father's law?
Your father's law is to kill babies. Real easy. Looking up at as soon as she sees him, she has compassion on him.
Yeah,
How could you look at a baby and throw it in the river?
that's a good question.
That's why he sent a woman to get it.
Ooh, look at you, Mary. That's why you need a woman.
I'm serious, because, I don't know, I just think if it was a soldier or something, that kind
Oh,
of.
yeah, that probably would have been a
Yeah,
totally different
totally
story.
different
And I think God also used his daughter because that was
His baby.
kind of his whooping, if
Yep.
you will. That
Oh,
was
okay. His correction,
his
Pharaoh's correction.
Yes.
I like that. So,
I never thought of it that way. I just always thought, oh, well, that was his daughter. That was his baby. And she was wanting something, so he was giving it to her. I never thought of it as being his correction. I like that.
But also, it points out that God can use anybody.
yes, and that was something I put on here in capital letters. God has full power over everything.
Yes, He can use anybody. It doesn't
Yes.
matter what station you are,
Yes,
what sin you've committed.
doesn't matter. Yes,
He can
exactly.
use you.
God can
And
use.
He will.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Yes, He will. Especially somebody that's willing.
Yes.
Especially somebody that's willing. So here we have 3 women used to deliver the deliverer, the chosen one. And a side note here, I thought this was interesting. Hebrew mothers nurse their children for up to 5 years. Up to 5 years was the norm. So, and this raises more questions. We won't focus on that too much. But Moses could have been with his mom, for his biological mom, for 5 years being nursed. Now, not going to talk about it because I know we could go all over the place, but I've often wondered how did she keep him hid for 5 years? She was scared at 3 months and sent him away, So you just wonder how all that worked. Anybody ever wondered how that worked?
If I was guessing, this is in my mind, she had soldiers that probably knew that was her baby, that she was adopting that baby, and they kind of didn't
Okay,
bother to kill the child.
some other people were in on it.
Yeah, I
So-
think so.
Like,
But
okay,
that's
okay.
just, I don't have proof.
But
Yeah.
I think probably, I agree with you. I think, God had other people in play that were maybe for her protection or her servant that obeyed him, but
Yeah.
cared more about her than her father.
It's just like the midwives, God
Yeah.
used them, and I think he used other people to help, because he had a plan for Moses,
Okay, makes sense.
but that, I don't have proof.
Right. Well, I've just often wondered how all that. I think one of those questions I get to ask when I get there, I guess.
You won't think about that when you get.
I'm probably right. You're probably right.
By the way,
Okay, so Any more comments or questions on Jochebed and Pharaoh's daughter? Again, they were vessels willing to be used by God. Now, we're going to talk about Miriam a little bit. Moses' sister. Now, we know, that she followed him and did all this that she did. And then we don't read about her again until Exodus chapter 15. And let's read that scripture. Exodus 15 verses 20 and 21. Somebody like to read that?
And Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing ye to the Lord, for thou hast triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he thrown into the sea.
So this is after they crossed the sea, the dry land. And Miriam, a prophetess. Miriam was a prophetess. This is the only time to read in the Bible that she was a prophetess. I thought that was interesting. Does a prophetess have to? Do you have to be able to tell the future in order to be a prophetess or a prophet? Is that what we always think of? The prophet Isaiah, the prophet, all these. But that's not necessarily, the prophet's not limited to that or has to have that. What do y'all think?
Like, what qualifies you to be a prophetess or a prophet?
And my Bible says that she did receive revelations from God.
She what?
That she received revelations from God.
Do you think she might have received revelations?
Yeah, it's got some Bible verses that quote, and that she had musical skill.
Yes. Yes. So, I'm getting off track. My mind's going somewhere.
I'm gonna make a comment, but I probably shouldn't. But in reading this, or in my book, it says dancing is okay because they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people frown on dancing, but, it's in the Bible, David danced,
Speaking of dancing, when I hear music, I have to move. I cannot be still. I probably embarrass myself greatly. I mean, I was out with
Hold on. I did not. I did not.
I remember one time Michael was still just, little. He might have been like kindergarten age or something, but they moved in with us for a little bit, while they went in between houses. And I would get my music, put my earbuds in, listen to my music, and clean house. And especially if I had a room, I had a dancing partner, while I was cleaning house. It's just what I did. I can't be still when I'm, So evidently, Michael seen me dancing with the broom. And he went into the bedroom and asked his mom, and said, "What is wrong with my Mom Janet? She's dancing she's moving with the broom or something." And Kimberly said, "She's all right. She's just cleaning and listening to her music, So I thought it was kind of funny, but even yesterday I was outside helping Tony and I was listening to some music and I couldn't just not respond. I don't know what it is. If I hear live music, I've got to move in some sort of way. That's just the way I am. Yeah, dancing is joyous too. I think for me, I might not be for y'all, but for me, if I'm dancing to something, then I feel lighter. That makes sense? So, anyway, didn't mean to get sidetracked there, but.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack.
No, that's okay, because, she did, and that's the point, I guess, I'd like to make, is that she led the worship, and with the children of Israel. And she said, let's do this. You know, if you read that, verse 20 and 21, she said, sing ye to the Lord, and, you know, set the example, and stood up and led the worship. And I think that's
Well,
awesome.
you know, we also usually think about, you know, it was Moses and Aaron,
Yeah,
but my Bible pointed me to this Bible verse, is in it, said in Micah, and it says, for I
Yes.
brought thee out of
Yes.
the land of Egypt and redeemed thee out of the house of servants, and I sent before thee Moses, Aaron, and Miriam.
I was getting to that, so
I'm
you.
sorry.
No, you're fine, that's fine, so,
Meaning of man.
yeah, because that's right here, and I wrote it down too. I was like, I like that, because she is, and again, we know, we'll go to this for a minute, we know that Miriam was not a perfect person. We know, you know, in the Exodus, how her and Aaron helped make the idol, but God still used her, and he still had her reference later in the Bible. That's what I'm trying to say. So he still thought highly enough of her to put her in the Bible, even after she messed up. You know, God, you know, he loves us. You know, it made me think, and I meant to do this at the start, but this woman of God message that I read, you know, back several weeks ago, if only you could see what God sees when he looks at you, it would undo every lie that ever made you feel small. Think of Miriam. I mean, not just yourself, but think of Miriam here too. He sees you as worth rescuing, worth loving, worth waiting for, not a burden, not a disappointment, not too sensitive, and not too much. God sees the real you, the one underneath the stress and the doubts and the I'm not good enough. He sees the girl who keeps showing up when it's hard, the girl who talks to him even when she's not sure what to say, the girl who wants light in her life even when she's surrounded by shadows. And God calls you chosen. He calls me chosen. He calls us Mary chosen, and Stacy, and Joanne, and Patty. He calls us chosen, beloved, set apart, made on purpose, with purpose. That's us. That's us. And these women are doing exactly that, and God's honoring that. I meant to read that at the beginning and completely forgot, but think of these women, you know, when I read this, I think of them, and the women that we're studying, and how it goes to me. But I can see it in their lives, you know, see the witness, the testimony in their lives, and know that it can be for me too.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the ladies that accomplish these major things, you know, that God is mentioning, and oftentimes I'm like, I've not done anything big enough, you know, like, but sometimes our job, maybe just for me to give Lorelai,
Yeah.
you know, to me, that job is just as important as something major. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that might be the purpose that God has set before me, not nothing major, you know, like,
But it is major.
it is major. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
In other people's eyes, like, I'm not,
Yes. I know.
you know, leading a crowd, but to me, leading Lorelai, that's my job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get
That's
what
my
you're saying.
purpose.
Yeah. Well, and these were ordinary
Right.
women. except they were,
Because I think if we're not careful, we'll struggle, like we should be doing
Yes.
something bigger.
yes, I
Like we
got
should
you.
be doing more.
Yes, yes,
But a lot of times, just what you do on a day-to-day basis is the Lord's work.
yes, yes,
It don't have to be fireworks, like,
yes.
Sometimes those, sorry,
Go ahead.
sometimes those little things,
Right.
just giving a hug to
Right.
someone that you feel like is having a hard day, or showing compassion to someone that just, you feel like just needs to know that somebody cares about whatever is happening, is the big thing
It's the major thing in their
that
life.
we think is so tiny, but
Right.
could be
huge for those.
huge for somebody else.
I don't know, sorry.
I wanna say this, that, you know, I have said back there these last few months, and have my daughters, all three of my daughters around me, and all their children with them, and I cannot tell you what that means to me. I cannot express what that does to my heart and does for my soul. That's big. That's big. I mean, no matter how small we thought it was, that's big. So even in the small things, big things happen. Look, when we started coming here, it was the five of us. Right? Tony, me, and the girls. Now look how many there are. So, Jessica's counting. Thank you, Jessica.
13.
So the little things
Right.
turn into much bigger things than, yeah. So God is good at that.
Marion didn't do like she did. It was great, but it wasn't a big thing. She followed his basket to see where it ended up,
Mm-hmm.
and then spoke up about
Yeah.
chocolate. But I don't think, and I'm not trying to belittle her or anything, but I don't think that was something that was huge, but it had a huge impact. Does that make sense?
It would have been. It could have been huge if she would have been called.
Yes,
That's what I was about to say.
it wasn't newsworthy.
Right.
Well, but she was also very brave
Yes.
by speaking up to
Yes.
Pharaoh's daughters.
Again, I think it's the small thing that we think is nothing that becomes the big thing for someone else.
But she was a woman. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, what if that had been a boy following it?
Yeah.
What would he have done? You know what I mean?
Hey, God, we know God
We know.
uses women.
Absolutely.
I mean, He uses everybody. We know, in part, I know that because of this, because I've learned from it how important I am to God, and I want y'all to feel the same way. You know, we're not just here, you know, to be sitting here. Or God made us too, made us for a reason. And that's what we want to know what that purpose, I think, you know, our goal is to find that purpose and to know what that purpose is. And we're going to touch on that just a little bit later. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's see. Any other comments or thoughts? Here it is, Mary and y'all. I knew it was too close.
Okay.
We can be ready to be His heirs by being with God in His Word, by being with God in prayer, and being with like-minded people on God's path. That's how we can be ready, even if it is just a small thing to follow in the ark, or if it's the shaking the tambourine or whatever it may be. And that's how we can be ready. Being with God in His Word, being with God in prayer, and being with like-minded people on God's path. what we're doing right here is getting us ready. And God is always there, making a way. Always. Now, I love the daughters of Zelophehad. Yeah. Well, you know what? I gotta say this because Zelophehad. Guess what Zelophehad's dad's name was? Heifer. Yes.
Nice.
I just thought that was funny.
That is funny.
So I'd rather be Zelophehad than Heifer. Okay. So, I love these sisters. I love the story. I love what they did. They took courage to do what they did. So, here we have again 5 brave women who not only their actions change things their day, but it's still changing things in our day, if you will. So to set the stage, the Israelites were ready to enter the promised land. This is in Numbers, I think. Numbers 27. But the Israelites were ready to enter the promised land. These 5 daughters were concerned with preserving their father's name because he had no sons. And this is all about preserving names. So, they approached Moses to ask for the inheritance that would have been their families once they got into the promised land. Because there were no brothers, no sons. And their determination, their willingness, their strength, led to something far more significant. And I guess I can say this a little bit here, not partial to this, because I have 2 sisters. And there are 3 of us. No sons. So I can kind of, and my girls can probably attest, feel some of this too. So we know Zelophehad had no sons. And we know the culture back then, that, it was all about the men, the boys, inheritance. So in Numbers 27, verses 1 through 4. Would somebody like to read that, please?
Hang on. 27, 1 through 4?
Yeah.
It's got
Okay. I will try to read it. Then came the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Heifer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. All these are male names. And these are the names of his daughters: Mela, Noah, and Hoglah, and Milcah, and Tirzah. How was that?
Good job.
Okay. And they stood before Moses and before Eleazar, the priest, and before the princes and all the congregation by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, Our father died in the wilderness, and he was not in the company of them that gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah, but died in his own sin and had no sons. Why should the name of our father be done away from among his family? Because he hath no son. Give unto us, therefore, a possession among the brethren of our father. These women were able to stand in front of Moses and this priest, and who knows how many other people, and ask for something that has not been asked for before. And they are, in essence, you start to think about it, telling Moses and these people, 1.2. And evidently none of them were married yet. You know, they don't say anything about spouses, but they stood it because they said, our father's name needs to continue on, and we need to have what is rightfully ours. Now, what do you think it took for them to do that? A lot of courage. Anything else?
So I put right here, it says, it asked, might standing before such a formidable group be intimidating for his daughters? I said there was 5 of them, so.
Strength in numbers. There is strength in numbers. I will, yes, most definitely. There is strength in numbers. But how were they able to, now think, again, this is against the norm, okay? They're going against the norm here. How have you ever stood up to somebody for yourself? Have you ever stood up to somebody for yourself? Somebody even, let's say, in authority over you. I will give you an example. In high school, we had this principal. His name was Mr. Underwood. Very well respected. Very good man. Very good principal. But he stood tall, okay? And I'll never forget, we was in high school, and we were late, me and my friend were late going to class because we went to vocational school in the mornings, and then when we got back, lunch, you know, and it took us longer because lunch was over before we could finish eating, so we were typically late for the next class. But that was, you know, that was just the way it was. And we were allowed so much time. Anyway, just to give you that a little bit of background, but we were walking to our class, and Mr. Underwood seen us. And what are you girls doing out in the hall? And I said, well, going to our class. Well, why are you late? Well, we were on the vocational bus, and we just got done eating. Okay, he knew this. Okay, and so we just got done eating, so we're just now getting to our class. So we go into the room, the classroom, and here comes Mr. Underwood, and he looks at the teacher, and he says, these 2 girls owe me a fee. However many words it was, for being late. And, no sir. I looked at my friend, I said, are you going to do the thing? She said, no. I said, I'm not either. So, we both went home. Now look, I'm just a teenage high school. I might have been a sophomore or junior, I don't remember. I was one or the other because that's when I went to vocational school. So I went home, and I told my daddy. And I said, Daddy, you might get a call in the morning. And I explained to him what happened. And he said, okay, don't do it. You're right, don't do that. And if you have any problems, you just call me in the morning I said, okay. So, went to school the next morning. Of course, I was nervous, you know, nervous. But I mean, because I did respect this Mr. Underwood. I respected him a lot and thought a lot of him. So, we go in the commons area where we normally go to wait on the vocational bus. And here comes Mr. Underwood, you know, walking, looking at me and my friend. Do you have your fee? No, we didn't do it. Detention. So, as soon as I could, I think I used a payphone down the hall. Somebody called my dad, okay? And I'll never forget, my friend said that her parents told her she should do it. They wasn't behind her 100%, okay, that's what I'm trying to say. But we sat in there and thought, we're gonna miss vocational school because he's put us in detention hall. Well, here come my daddy. I'll never forget it. All the people were on the bus out in the parking lot to go to vocational school. And he had this old yellow truck, I think is what he was driving. We called it old yellow. Well, we got, he come to that school and he pulled in and he got Mr. Underwood and he said, my daughter did not owe you a thing and she needs to get out of detention so she can get to vocational school where she needs to be. Well, we got pulled out of detention hall and we got put on that vocational bus and we went to that vocational school like we were supposed to. And I'll never forget, them boys on the bus said, you should have seen your daddy come around here. He didn't even stop at that stop sign. He just took the curb and he was on, just going. I'm like, that's my daddy. But I tell you that to tell you this. Maybe their dad taught them to stand up for themselves. Maybe that's what he did. And that might have been one of the reasons they were able to do that. He taught them, I'm sure he taught them how to do that. And I know my dad taught me to stand up for myself. He taught me that I could do just about anything I wanted to do, and I think these daughters probably had the same kind of dad. And I think that's partly why they were able to stand up to Moses. I mean, I know for me, I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't know what was going to happen when I stood up to that principal. And I'm sure I hope we each have someone we can think of. And it doesn't have to be your dad. Well, wouldn't it be God Almighty himself? I mean, him and himself. But hopefully we've had someone in our life that's taught us how important we are and that we do matter. And I think these women had that. They were raised. I think they were raised knowing they were important. Anybody have any comments or anything on that? So they went and they stood before Moses and all these people. And I love this. Poor little Moses didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. What was it, in verse 5. And Moses brought their cause before the Lord. Moses had to pray about it.
I think Moses himself questioned things with God, So I think for the women to stand up for themselves, I think the women got a lot of courage from the fact that, God was in their corner to begin with.
Yes,
And
yes.
I think we can draw strength from that oftentimes in situations where we're not so sure we're supposed to do it, but.
And I knew what he did. Tell us to do. I knew that was wrong. I knew that was not right. I knew that without a doubt. But it was still scary.
Yeah.
But Moses had to figure out what to do. you know? He didn't know what to do. This wasn't normal. This was not the normal for women in that time. So Moses went and prayed and he asked God, what am I going to do with these women? You know? And what does God tell him? The daughters of Zelophehad speak right. Thou shalt surely give them a possession of an inheritance among their father's brethren, and thou shalt cause the inheritance of their father to pass on to them. Praise the Lord. I love it. I just love this, and it just speaks to me so much because it gives me courage to stand up for what is right. It should give all of us courage to stand up for what is right. These women bamboozled the norm. They went against the norm. And their actions led to a change in Israel's inheritance laws. Isn't that not just something? Because these 5 women were brave enough to stand up and go before their leader, great leader, the prophet, the chosen one, the deliverer, that's what I was trying to get to, the deliverer, went up to him. And so it changed the inheritance laws. God works through women of all types, each uniquely designed for his purpose. He shapes our personalities. He equips us for specific ways that he calls us to serve him. I'm going to read this. This is some of what Jamie wrote in her book. It's evident that these 5 daughters, actually all of the Azars we've studied today, talked about today, that their God-given courage and purpose were instrumental in shaping the course of Israel's history. Think about that for a minute. Their actions, the women's actions, shaped the course of Israel's history. Their actions came at pivotal moments in God's redemptive plan, showcasing God's profound esteem for women, esteem for you and me, by incorporating them into the blessed alliance with Moses. Let's allow you and me, let's allow their legacies to challenge us to recognize and embrace the roles to which God has called us. Let it challenge us. Ordinary women acting in their God-given design, taking their place in God's plan and purposes for the world, for God's glory and others' good. For God's glory and others' good. Changing the world in the process. I want to read a couple of scriptures that talk about equipping for specific ways that he calls us, and some truth. Proverbs 16:4, and this is just part of that scripture. The Lord hath made all things for himself. He made us for himself. Made you and me. Ephesians 2:10. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained to prepare that we should walk in them. 2 Timothy 1 verses 9 and 10. who hath saved us and called us with an holy calling, not according to our works, but according to his own purpose and grace, which was given us in Christ Jesus before the world began, but is now made manifest by the appearing of our Savior Jesus Christ, who hath abolished death and hath brought life and immortality to light through the gospel, called us with an holy calling. We have a holy calling, ladies. We are his workmanship. I am his workmanship. Me. Just me. Physically, mentally, spiritually. I am his workmanship. Maybe that's where these women found the bravery. Because they knew who created them. Maybe they found that bravery from him. You know? I don't know, I just love how these women, all these women, especially the daughters, just stood up and asked for what was, I don't know, just how they stood up. They wasn't gonna be walked and trampled upon. I love it. This is probably my favorite lesson. I don't know. I can't get over God's goodness and his purpose and power and mightiness and the esteem that he has for me, for little old me. You might got any comments or questions?
This comes to my mind, which my mind ain't too good, but, when, in reading that, Moses went to God and asked God before he gave an answer. And I feel like we, as Christians or believers, should always go to God with what we have and to get an answer from him. Whether, I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, it's just like the thing where it says how you can be ready. One is by praying with God. Remember, of course I can't find
But
it
he
now.
asked God before he gave him an answer. He didn't just say, no, you can't do it. He went to God. and-
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, he didn't
That's
answer
what I'm trying to
immediately.
say. God said, yeah, the women have a right to it the same as the man does. That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah, I got you. He didn't answer immediately.
I think you're right. I think in anything that we face in life, before we make a split decision on, I just need to do this, we should talk it over with God before we jump.
It's sort of like when, in a marriage, whenever you're trying to make decisions, I feel like it's a husband and wife thing. They should discuss it before they do something, like major purchases or like raising the kids, you know. Al and I had, I'm probably out of context, but Al and I had agreement. If I said no and they went to him, he said, what did your mom say, you know? And it was like, you know, what one said, that was what, you know, was, don't go against me, just do what I tell you. But, I mean, that's the way I look at it, but that's
I
just me.
remember one time, so we lived in a little 2-bedroom, single wide trailer with 3 girls. And we've been wanting to try to find something different, bigger. And we've been looking and just couldn't afford, you know. And things didn't work out. I prayed and asked God and it didn't work out. I said, okay, well, that's not it. Well, one Friday, we just decided to go look one more time at double wides. So that's what we did. We went back Saturday, nailed it down, picked the one. They said, okay, we'll run the numbers. you'll correct blah, 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 and we'll let you know something, maybe even tomorrow. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, fast, this was happening fast. So I walked the floor, I didn't know what to do, you know. That morning went to church, and the choir started singing, I'd like to talk it over with him. Well, I went running to the altar, you know, and I was praying, I was saying, I got specific, I said, Lord, I gotta know something, they're possibly gonna call us this afternoon, I got to know, you know, and I was just praying, asking God, being with God in prayer. And I heard him, clear as day, said, go get it, it's yours. Got home that afternoon from church, they called, everything went through, we just need you to come and sign the papers. And I'm like, I didn't have a job, period. I'm pretty sure Tony was laid off. And I'm like, what? You know, of course he was going back to work, that wasn't a big deal. But I always said we wouldn't do anything unless I had a job, which I did a lot of temporary work, but I thought, you know, I didn't even have a temporary job, nothing. And he said, go get it, it's yours. And that's what we did that afternoon. And here it is 26, almost 27 years later, and we still have that house. So, being with God in prayer gets you ready. Anything else?
Think about the $5, and not only were they taught to stand up for themselves, but they had to have the confidence to walk into where they walked up to speak to Moses and all these other people. They had to have the confidence for that. That's hard.
Had to have the confidence to stand.
To even walk in their rooms.
Yeah.
Maybe they prayed about it first too.
Yeah. Maybe God told them, go get it, it's yours. Just a thought there. Okay. Any other comments? Anything? All right. When do we want to come back for the next